Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. I'm out here in the beautiful desert just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Went hiking today with some friends up on Superstition Mountain in the Wave Cave. Google that if you're a hiker. Great destination, but I happen to be reviewing the 2023 GMC 1500 AT4X, the ultimate off-roader from GMC, and so it just worked out that today is also the perfect opportunity to bring this thing out in its natural habitat and show you what it's all about. All right, my friends, before we get out on the drive, let's talk about what we've got here because it's a lot. And when I show you the price, you'll know what I mean. This is the 1500 Sierra AT4X, which is the top of the line off-roader. And as tested, we're pricing out at $81,000, actually just a few ticks less. So what do you get for that money? Well, when you get into the AT4X, mechanically speaking, we are identical to the Chevrolet ZR2 in the Silverado, and that means this has got a 2-inch suspension lift. It has a lot of off-road locking and software toys, which we'll talk about on the drive, but looking at the suspension, this has the DSSV spool valve dampers. Pretty exotic stuff. Look at that. And they're dirty, of course, because we've been out here playing, but front and rear, you've got these really nice dampers, which give this thing a lot of what you're paying for in terms of performance. 18-inch black painted wheels, Goodyear Wrangler off-road tires, and these are pretty expensive to buy if you've been shopping for tires. I have, so I've looked at those and thought, nah, but hey, they've come on the truck for your $81,000. Now, when we talk about styling, this has unique styling that you get for part of that price tag. Unique grille, front fascia, and here we've got LED headlights. There are LED fog lights down in the lower part of that fascia. You'll also see red tow hooks there. The other thing that I really like about what they've given me here is this color, Desert Sand Metallic. Now, if you look at this color in the pictures, it looks like flat tan paint, which I'm good with. But when the sun comes out, this thing lights up with a nice pearlescent glow, which is one of the reasons they're charging $495 for it. But I really do like this color. I think it fits perfectly with our surroundings and what we're doing today. From this angle, I really think this truck looks hot. I really like this particular 3/4 view. And one of the things I like about GMC's design over the Silverado, well, there's a lot of things, but one of them are the wheel arch openings. I like that little angled cut that they have that gives it a bit of a unique look. You can tell from across the parking lot that this is a GMC, not a Chevrolet. But getting back to what we've got right here, I have to admit, when this truck first showed up and I hopped in it the first time, I was expecting these running boards to pop out and meet my foot. But guess what? That's not what they are. They are not running boards. They're not power operated. These are rock rails, which is a good thing on a truck like this. They are going to protect that rocker and underbody from rocks, boulders, sticks, whatever you happen to be high centering over if you're really doing some heavy duty off-roading. And these are an accessory on the truck. On the options list, they don't call it rock rails, it's something else, but they are $1,200. If you were getting the truck, you'd want to have them. And so they are pretty sturdy, but they are definitely not running boards. So they're not going to help you get up in and out of this truck. And with this 2-inch lift, it is a climb, but there are grab handles getting inside. Now, looking at the cargo box, this has a spray and bed liner and a number of other very cool accessories in there. AT4X right there at the front of the bed, at the back wall, and LED lighting. Lots and lots of hooks, but the tailgate's really where the news is. This has the multi-flex tailgate, which some might have said it was a gimmick when this generation of the truck first came out, but it is very cool because not only is it a remote opening tailgate by a key fob or button inside, but it has that multi-flex gate that you can lower that top half. That gives you a lower loading surface, so you can put lumber or maybe kayaks, accessories, toys. You can hang things over the back of this truck just a little bit, since we do have only the 5'8" box. And it allows you to have those walls at the side to keep that stuff from sliding side to side. That really gives you some versatility there. But when that tailgate's down, you can go one step further with that multi-flex gate, and then you've got a step back there getting up in and out of the truck. But look at what's there. This is like the coolest thing that totally blew me away with this truck. The Kicker sound system. Now, this is an option, and that's part of the packaging. You can hook up any device through USB cable. You can use an auxiliary cable, you can use Bluetooth streaming, and you can have a block party speaker system back there powered by the truck. Is that not cool? I mean, campsite, you got your toys out at the desert, you're driving around, you've got sound that you can hear from a pretty good distance away. I think that's awesome. That is almost what makes this truck worth 80 grand, maybe. But that said, stepping back away, I think that really it's just a good looking truck from this angle. And of course, the last thing I'd point out are those bumper steps down there, something I think every truck should have, and we always expect it with a GMC or a Chevrolet. Look at this interior. This is one of the reasons you spend up for the GMC, because while there's a lot of little differences and there's a lot of little things that are the same between the Silverado and the Sierra, here is where the money's at. This gets a unique interior, and for 2022, this got a complete refresh on the interior with larger screens, a lot more tech, and a little bit more comfort along the way. In this particular trim grade, we've got rich leather seats with white piping, soft trims on the dash with stitching and piping that just really looks a step up in terms of price, because it is. The technology, I've got a 12.3-inch instrument cluster ahead of me that's pretty customizable, and a nice leather covered steering wheel with paddle shifters on it. Over here, a large center stack with the new large screen infotainment system, and a huge console control area that's got controls for not only the HVAC, a big huge start button which has a nice square shape to it, and down below a bank of switches for a lot of the software traction toys for the off-roading, as well as a number of other things, including the auto start stop. Down below here in the center of the console, there's a place I like to put my phone. Although this doesn't have a charger, I just always like to be able to see my phone if it lights up when I'm driving. But this does have a slot right here in the center console that does have a wireless charger down there, and you can put it out of the way off to the side. The shifter on this is a drive-by-wire electronic shifter. It's more of a toggle. It actually works pretty good, and the trailer brake controller is just behind it on that center console. Cup holders off to the side, so you can put big gas station cups here. They're not going to be in anybody's way. And the storage in here, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. There's this tray that sort of sits here, and you have to lift it up to get down into the bottom, and it's not quite as large as the storage area that you're going to find in an F-150 or in the Ram. It's a little bit smaller, less space in there. It is pretty deep though. These seats I found to be pretty comfortable during my week. They are on the more firm side, as I found with a lot of GM products. They are heated and ventilated here, and there is a pretty good level of adjustment to go around. And when you do turn on those heated seats, of course, you also get the heated steering wheel. Just above me is nice big sunroof. Not a panoramic sunroof, but in some ways I kind of like these better just because they make more sense to me. Does that make sense? As you can see back here, I've got a lot of space. These seats, as always, set for me. My height is about 5'9" with my boots on. And look at this, I've got about 8 inches from my knees to the back of this chair. I could have like a 7'8" guy up here with that seat all the way back, and I'd still be okay. Plenty of space. The seat height back here is reasonably high. I call it medium on the scale of good to bad. It's not all the way down like some trucks I've sat in. It's not that high seating that I typically like. You can see my knees are perched up just a little bit, but yet still more comfortable than some of the competitors that I've sat in. There are plenty of amenities back here. There are vents at the back of the console, USB ports for charging, and there is a nice center armrest fold down here. But the versatility back here is actually something I'm going to kind of show you. These seats do fold upward, and that allows storage underneath. There's a bit of a storage gutter in the back for some things, but it does have a little bit of open floor space so that you can put big box items back here or gear. There's also these very cool little fold out storage areas in the seat backs, and that sort of allows you to get some items in the back. It's a nice place to just sort of stow those things away, like gloves or flares or other things that you like to travel with. There's a lot of storage in here overall, not only in the back, but there's the double glove box that is sort of a trademark GM thing. So plenty of room for you and your gear. This is an interior that I just think is probably one of the best in the pickup truck business. They really upped the game with the refresh in 2022. This interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is also one of the big new things that came with this refresh in 2022. 13.4-inch screen, and it's got the new General Motors sort of standard that's coming across Google built-in services. A lot of great online cloud-based services. The menus and the graphics are good. They do take a little bit of getting used to, but it's very intuitive once you get used to it and get to know it. It's got a lot of camera views, which I'll show you when we get out on the off-road trail, that take backup camera to a whole new level. Navigating around and using it, as I said, takes a little bit of getting used to, and you do have that big white screen with the Android style Google Maps. Now you can reverse that in color, but it works very good. The voice control, you can talk to it just like any Google device. You can say, "Hey Google, I want to go to the Peralta Trailhead."
Peralta Trailhead is 29 minutes from your location by car and light traffic.
Let's do it. Perfect. And you can see there, it just really knows how to find that stuff and shows it to you. And it just works very conversationally. This is a system that has great sound, 12-speaker Bose system. I'm very happy with it. This infotainment system gets 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, kids, let's take this thing for a drive and talk about what this thing actually is like to live with. First of all, it's a big, huge truck. So if you're out on a tight trail, you might find yourself needing to turn around and do some things like that. And the first thing I got to talk about in that way is this multiple camera system that this has. This is the greatest invention since the word technology landed on Wikipedia. This allows you to see what's in front of you, what's in behind you, choose your camera view, get a bird's eye view when you're in a tight spot like this, turning around. This is almost worth the money right here. But I digress. We are not doing hardcore off-roading today that this truck is truly capable of, because it's not mine, but we are taking a pretty tight little trail here today that does a pretty good job of demonstrating why we have these DSSB spool dampers. Getting in a nice tight spot like this, a lot of articulation with this 2-inch suspension lift. This has increased suspension travel as well. And these dampers, the reason why everyone loves them so much and everyone's so gaga over them is because most trucks, you have to, if you have an off-road vehicle, the suspension has to be tuned a certain way for off-roading. It has to have a lot of travel, articulation. It has to be soft and cushy, okay? Well, guess what? You don't always want that when you're driving on the road and towing a trailer. What these spool valve dampers allow is for the suspension to behave one way on the highway when you're at speed, and another way when we're off-road out here doing the things that are happening out here. So when we get sudden shocks and a lot of suspension travel needs, these dampers can react differently here than they would when you've got a trailer and a full load on and you're going 70 miles an hour down the freeway. And so what I like about it is the fact that because these things seem to be so adaptive, this doesn't have the stiff, beat-you-to-death ride like most General Motors off-road suspension packages have. And we've tested a lot of them. The Z71, even the AT4, they tend to be very stiffly sprung so that they can still have payload capability and trailer towing capability. But here, we've got a nice soft suspension that gives you the compliance you want out here riding in the trail. And so in that way, we have 8,900 pounds of towing. The payload is 1,290 pounds, which is on the lower side of what's offered in the Sierra, but whenever you get into an off-road suspension, off-road vehicle, you always have usually the least payload possible because not only of the extra weight, but because of the tuning they've had to do so that this can actually do what it does off-road. And in that way, you've got front and rear lockers for the front and rear differential, and all of the traction toys that you could ever want, a whole bank of them right here. A lot of traction toys, that's what I call them. Terrain management, let's say. And so this has a 1-pedal rock crawling mode that allows you to set a speed, and just with 1 pedal on off, you can manage yourself going over just about any kind of terrain that's out there. So if you're into the software toys, this has got them. But this is just riding so nicely over this rough stuff. Much better than I expected, quite honestly. And that is the benefit of having this DSSV spool valve damper suspension. That's why everyone's excited about it. And as we transition here to the Desert Washboard Road, which is always another place I love to test trucks and SUVs, this is a place that, even though it isn't hardcore off-roading, this ribbed washboard surface can make a vehicle feel like a big POS and really test just how well bolted together the body and the chassis is, how well tuned the suspension is. And these dampers once again save the day, because they're giving me a nice muffled ride out here that it isn't allowing a lot of this vibration to get transmitted into the structure. The seats are not jumping around, the doors aren't shaking in their frames, I'm not getting rattling in the dash. This thing feels solid as can be. So I'm impressed. And again, you know, I've tested a lot of Chevrolet and GMC trucks out here on this washboard road. They don't usually score so well because of the aforementioned stiffer off-road suspensions. But because this thing is a little bit easier on the ribs and a little easier on the bones, it's easier on the truck. So I'm very happy with what this has shown me so far, but the reality is you have to drive on the pavement most of the time in your daily lives. Most people do. And so how this performs on the pavement is really, well, where the rubber hits the road. So on the pavement, because of these dampers I keep going on and on and on about, this is a vehicle that's got a nice solid ride out on the highway at speed, as well as driving around town. And in Phoenix downtown, I've got things like speed bumps and speed humps, lots of irregular things that can really upset a solid axle suspension, and that doesn't really happen too much. This has a nice compliant ride over the rough stuff, yet a solid stable ride doing the normal everyday things, and we talked about that out there on the trail. The one thing I would point out is these tires that are really great off-road do make a little bit of road noise. You can hear them, especially out on the highway, on the freeway. Not a big deal. Chances are, if you want this truck and if you like off-road trucks, you kind of like the sound, but it is worth noting that these Goodyear Wrangler tires do make a little bit of road noise. The brakes on this, four-wheel disc brakes, 13-inch discs at the front, 13.5 discs at the rear. I do notice that they take a little bit of work sometimes to stop this truck, again, going to its curb weight. You know you've got weight around when you're rolling up to a stop sign. I would say they're adequate. I have not driven this with weight on it, but just driving the truck around with itself, I would call them adequate. But overall, this chassis I do find very impressive, both on and off the road. They've done a good job here. Worth the money, I'd say. This chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. Now it's time to talk about powertrain. So if you watch my videos, you know the question I always like to ask is, how does it go? Woo, little scratch there. Not bad. And 60. Woo, sounds pretty good, huh? It should. It is the top engine option here in the Sierra, the 6.2 liter V8, 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque. And it's got this 10-speed automatic transmission that GM happens to work with Ford to build. They both share the same transmission, almost exactly the same. It works really well. Plenty of power, it's got a nice sound, and with the four-wheel drive here, it's got a 2-speed transfer case, so that's all good. This engine has a lot of modern tech, even though it is a good old small block V8. It has direct fuel injection, it has variable cam timing. It has active fuel management. It can shut up to 4 of the cylinders down and run on 4 when you don't need all of that power. And it's got that other feature that I'm not really keen on, auto start stop. Come to a stoplight, engine shuts off, you let off the pedal, turns back on, off you go. Actually, in this particular vehicle, it's not so terrible because it works pretty quickly, but also because this is such a big, heavy truck, by the time you can get moving in this big, huge tank, it's quick enough, let me just put it that way. But if you really don't like it, there is an off switch down here on the center console, and when you put it in tow mode and some of the other modes, it tends not to operate. Obviously, this is a very heavy truck. It weighs 5,780 pounds, so it's fast for a truck. And fuel economy, of course, isn't exactly hybrid territory. The EPA rates this at 14 city, 17 highway, and 15 MBG combined. In my week with it, I actually got right around 14, but the air conditioner actually has been on just a little bit, oddly enough, as cold as it's been getting. So this is a powertrain I'm actually very, very impressed with. And I like the fact that you can still get a good old big American V8 in a pickup truck, at least at the moment. We're not talking about a turbocharged V6 here that sounds like a weed eater. This powertrain gets 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, I had a great time today out here with this truck, doing a little trail riding, talking to you about it. I went on a great hike here up on the hill. And I got to tell you, that's why you buy a vehicle like this, is to be able to come out here to the nowhere and really not worry about whether you're getting home or not. You're not going to have to get somebody to tow you out. You're not have to call anybody, which is good because there's no cell service. And this is a truck that has all of the goods, all of the niceties to get you out here comfortably, confidently, and give you a little bit of fun while you're doing it. And of course, with its towing capability and all of that, you can bring all of your toys with you. Yeah, so 80,000 bucks, that's a lot. It is. But if you look at a fully loaded Ford F-150, if you get a ZR2 in the Silverado, which is the brother to this truck, if you get a Ram, whatever, with all of this stuff on it, you're gonna spend 80 grand. That's just where it's at for a fully loaded truck these days. And you can even spend more a little bit if you go crazy with the Ram or crazy with the Raptor. Obviously, this is not quite all the way up there with TRX and Raptor territory in terms of off-roading and horsepower, but it's as good as it gets from General Motors, and this isn't bad. So I like it. When I look at value, I look at quality, I look at warranty, all of the stuff that maybe the spreadsheet buyers are crunching numbers on. I put value here at 4 out of 5 stars because 80 grand is still a lot of money. And while, you know, we're in the same neighborhood as all the competitors, in a normal market, you could expect to get 5-10 grand off of this. Now, we're not in a normal market right now. You're gonna have to pay probably over sticker to get this truck, but at MSRP, I put it at 4 out of 5 stars for value. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review, which is exceptional for a full-size American truck. In my scoring system, not very many trucks get here. I love it. If I were to get one, I would totally get this color too. This is just, I'm all about that. I like it. So there you go, folks, our test drive of the Sierra 1500 AT4X. Yeah. So see our latest video right there. See our social media channels down there, but best yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right there. Either way, stay tuned.